I'd like to say good evening to everybody. I'd like to apologize for earlier with the sound. We had some difficulties on it. I'm not sure why, but we got it worked out. So, I'd like to say grace and peace to everybody. I'm sorry if kicked some of y'all off. We had to come from a different stream. So we're gonna try this again. Um, I want to look into a specific doctrine regarding America and Babylon. Most people, like I said, have a shallow understanding on what Babylon is, where it's located, um, and how it fits in prophecy as far as the Bible is concerned. So, America is definitely a place where the world considers it a melting pot, and also it's a lot of different uh, things or freedoms that you're allowed to do over here. So back in the day, it was mainly known for its religious beliefs, Christianity, and so that was, I guess, in a sense, what America was so-called founded on. And then over time, it began to get, go down, I guess, in degradation with the morals and values and stuff like that. Uh, America began to lose those values. I think around probably like the early '90s. Um, Things started becoming a little relaxed as far as Christianity and observing the Bible and stuff like that. Things started changing, and then later on in time, around 2000 up to around 2005, 2006 or seven, uh, the homosexuality agenda began to get pushed, real heavy, and so now today it's all out in the open as far as homosexuality is concerned. So, and then on top of that, a lot of killing, a lot of murders that happen, a lot of stealing. Uh, and America's is mainly the forefront of all the different wars that you see. You see America at the forefront, taking down countries and stuff like that. So, because of these different things I listed, and because of these actions and different belief systems that we now have in America, and most of it not being righteous, uh, a lot of people liken America to Babylon. And most people who don't have understanding on the Bible, what they say is that America is Babylon, America is going to fall, and America is going to fall. But as far as America being Babylon, that's not the case. Um, and that's what we're going to look at. So, but one thing I just want you to think about is when you look at America, America has been around, let's say 500 years at the most, no less than that. Um, because I mean, it may have been here. You may have had, like they say, in Indians were here and stuff like that. They say they were here. But as far as this country being established, it's not that old. So, in the big scheme of things, when you look at America, and compare it to everything over in the East regarding all these other countries that have been around for thousands of years, America is actually a very small piece to the puzzle. It's almost like we like to compare it to being like a leaf on a switch, and that's it. That's really all America is. Um, the one that we have to worry about, the main concern that we have to be focused on is actually Rome. This is where this is Babylon. This is the remaining part of Babylon. And we're gonna look at a few scriptures, and we're gonna see the origin of Babylon and how the Lord was going to pass down the rulership of Babylon from the beginning of uh, Japheth's son Nebuchadnezzar, all the way down to the end of the world. When the Lord get back, his sons will still be in power. And the Bible it gives you it's going to describe to you certain kingdoms that's going to come out of this Gentile dynasty, and they're going to rule all the way till the Lord returns. But it's never going to shift and come over to America. These kingdoms are still going to be mainly in the areas that the Lord give them. They'll be ruling from those particular areas. Now, America, when you think about America, um, America is just really like an extension of Rome. You know what I'm saying? Like just think about all the different things that we have set up over here in America, like the Coliseums, the courthouse, judicial system. Um, all these different things come out of Rome. So all America did was adopt the practices of Rome and just brought it over here. That's all, because they come out of that. You see, but the ultimate power is still Rome. And one reason that most people don't believe that Rome is Babylon is because they don't have an army right now. They're not going around busting heads. America is the one that's doing all that. However, the Bible speaks of a time that this particular part to this kingdom will come back, and it's going to have an army that's going to take down a part of the world. So essentially, what's going to happen is America's going to take a back seat. They're going to back up to Rome, and Rome's going to come into power. And that's what's getting ready to happen now. That's what's slowly starting to unfold. So let's go look at Genesis chapter 10. And this is titled, "Is America Babylon?" And I just wanted to, just touch on it because a lot of people look at it without a good understanding on it. And if you just focus on America, you're going to miss out on the big picture. Because just think about it. I mean, there's no Antichrist coming out of America. Donald Trump is not the Antichrist. Donald Trump is not the man of sin or the son of perdition. This man is going to come out from the east, east of us. That's what I mean, east of America. We're over here in the west. But when you look at east and west and north and south in the Bible, for the most part, it's really just talking about everything relative to Jerusalem. All right, so that's one thing you do have to understand. It's mainly talking about everything relative to Jerusalem. When I say east, I'm talking about for us, for our understanding, everything is really going to take place over in the east, over there on the African continent, over there in Europe, over in Russia and stuff like that. That's where everything going to happen at. So America is just, you got a lot of slaves over here and stuff like that. But as far as this being the place that's going to run it all to the end, nah, it's going to end up being wrong. All right, so let's look at Genesis chapter 10. We're going to pick this up at verse 1. It says, "Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Tyrus." Excuse me. "And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah, and the sons of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodan. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families in their nations." So When you look at these sons that came out of Japheth in these different lands that these sons are located, these are the isles of the Gentiles. All right, so now I do understand that most people think that if you're not a Jew, you're a Gentile, but that's not the case. Now inside your mind, you can think like a Gentile, like taking part of their customs and stuff like that. But every man has nationality ties back to the Bible, because after the flood, out of these three sons, the world was populated out of Noah's sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. All right, hold on one second. All right. So out of these three sons was the earth, repopulated after the flood. So everybody comes out of them. Now, what we're looking at specifically now, we're just looking at the ones who came out of Japheth. This is where your Gentile dynasty originated, out of Japheth. All right. In verse 8 it says it drops down to Ham's son, and we're just gonna pick it up at Cush. It says, and Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. And the reason I want to read this, because I want to show you what the name of his kingdom was, because this is where Babylon originated from. So it says, and Cush begot Nimrod, in verse 8. Well, I'm sorry, verse 6 first. And the sons of Ham, because remember now, he had three sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Then it says, and the sons of Ham in verse 6 was Cush, Mizraim, Phut, and Canaan, right? Then it says in verse 8, and Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. So Cush begot Nimrod, and once Nimrod came about, he was a mighty one, a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. Now, look at verse 10. It says, in the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar, right? So that's Babel originated, came out of the land of Shinar. All right, just remember that, because when the Gentiles come up, that we just read about first, when they come up, they actually gonna take the land of Shinar. You know what I'm saying? But it's still gonna be considered Babylon. But this is where it originated from. It originated in with Nimrod. All right, so what we've seen so far, we've seen that the Gentiles, they actually come out of Japheth. Japheth is one of Noah's three sons. If you go back, or if you look up these names on a map, I've seen some maps that actually translate these names, and they actually have these particular sons listed or on the map in these particular locations that the Lord gave them, because He gave all the sons, a particular part of the world. You understand? And for the most part, a lot of the nations are still in their land, like they still have access to it. Israel is the one that disobeyed God and got scattered in the worldwide captivity, because there was more on their plate than everybody else. So He kicked us out of our land, which was the Holy Land, the land that everybody is fighting over. But mostly everybody is still in their relative places that God gave the three sons of Noah. In this case, we're talking about Japheth and the Isles of the Gentile. This is through him. This is where the Gentiles were created, and He gave them particular lands going up to, you look at Europe, that particular area, Russia, Iran, those particular areas, China. That's what He gave the sons of Japheth. They went off into those areas. Just like Ham, he went south. Israel or Shem, he stayed, mainly central of the, he was in the central part of the world. That's why when the Lord get back, the law gonna go forth from Jerusalem, because that's still gonna be the central location of everything. All right. But now I'm gonna just read verse 8 again regarding Nimrod's, Ham's son Cush. It says, and Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom, talking about Nimrod, was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Now, in Genesis chapter 11 and stuff like that, you go and see what happened with Babel. The reason why the Lord called it Babel is because they tried to build a tower up to heaven. And what ended up happening, in order for the Lord to stop this, the way he stopped it, he just came down and confused their tongues. And that's where you get Babel from. All right, it just means confusion. So that's how it originated. All right, and it's still around today. But once again, in verse 10, he says, "In the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, Calneh, and the land of Shinar." All right, so that's very important. Now let's go into Jeremiah chapter 25. Jeremiah 25, because all the sons of Adam had a chance to rule the world, from starting with Ham's son, and then Israel came up. Once Israel got taken down, then the Gentiles came up, and that's what we're going to look at now. But this is the Lord giving the word to Jeremiah regarding what's getting ready to happen to Israel, because they've been disobeying. And the Lord tried to have mercy with Israel. He didn't want to send them into captivity. So he even bargained with them, as far as letting them know if they just kept the Sabbath, regardless of all the sin that they did, if they just kept the Sabbath, he wouldn't take them out of the land. Israel couldn't do that. So now, and they couldn't do it because it was hard. They just didn't want to do it. So now the Lord spoke to Jeremiah, let him know that he's getting ready to bring down Israel. And this is what's going to start the Gentile dynasty. So Jeremiah 25 and verse 1, it says, "The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah." That was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, or Nebuchadnezzar. It says it's spelled a different way here, but it's still talking about the same person. It says that was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. All right, so when Jehoiakim was in his 4th year of ruling, Nebuchadnezzar came up as king over Babylon, right? Then it says, in verse 2, "The which Jeremiah the prophet spake unto all the people of Judah and to all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying, From the 13th year of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, even unto this day, that is the 23rd year, the word of the Lord have come unto me, and I have spoken unto you, rising early and speaking, but ye have not hearkened. And the Lord hath sent unto you all his servants, the prophets, rising early and sending them, but ye have not hearkened, nor inclined your ear to hear." So now the Lord is getting ready to, go and bring some destruction, because he's trying to warn them. He's trying to give them a way out, but Israel just wasn't listening. So in verse 9 it says, "Behold, I will send to take all the families of the north, saith the Lord, and Nebuchadnezzar," or Nebuchadrezzar, that's what it says. It has an R instead of an N after the D. But it says, "Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and will bring them against this land and against the inhabitants thereof, and against all these nations round about, and will utterly destroy them, and make them an astonishment and an hissing and a perpetual desolations." So now the Lord is getting ready to bring this king Nebuchadnezzar up to come take out Jerusalem. And at this point, this is when this this will be the start of the white man coming into power. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, that it's not that black people didn't have a chance to rule. You go back to Africa. The Africans, they were black. They ruled it. Shem, he's black. And he had different. Well, Shem is a makeup of different colors in the nations, but inside of Shem, you have people that are black. So it had nothing to do with the Lord just picking on white people to rule the world. It's just their time to rule. You understand? All the sons had an opportunity to rule, and all the sons had dropped the ball. So now the Gentile is getting ready to come up. This would be the beginning of the European dynasty right here. So he say, as far as getting ready to take over the whole world. And I do mean the whole world. It says, "Behold, I will send to take all the families of the north." And what does he mean from the north? Because if you look at Israel, above Israel, then you got Europe, Then the Bible makes reference to it in Daniel. Titan's gonna come out of the north and out of the east, and that's gonna take you over to Russia and stuff, over to China. But like I said earlier, it's all relative to Jerusalem. This is how he's giving you those particular directions: north, west, east, and south. All right, or did I say that wrong? Northeast, southwest. Anyway, you get the point. He said, Behold, I will send to take all the families of the north, saith the Lord, and Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, will bring them against this land," talking about Jerusalem, "and against all the inhabitants thereof, and against all these nations round about, and will utterly destroy them, and make them an astonishment, and an hissing and perpetual desolations. Moreover, I will take from them the voice of mirth, and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride, the sound of the millstones, and the light of the candle. And this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. And that's what's going to end up happening with Israel, because this is where the prophecy comes about. As far as when you look at Daniel chapter 9, Daniel is asking a question about how long is his people going to be in captivity. And the angel came and told him, listen, I understand, because Daniel was in, captivity 70 physical years. At the end of those 70 physical years, he want to know, in other words, why are we still in this captivity? And the angel just told him, mainly these years are 70 weeks of years. So it's going to take it past a regular 70 years. You're going to multiply these 70 years times 7. That's going to take you to 490 years. And that's how long Israel is going to be in captivity. And that's why it says in the end of verse 11, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. So Babylon is going to rule for 490 years. And that's another lesson, but it's been, it was something that took place that actually stopped the count, but they're still ruling. And actually, Jesus' death is what stopped the count. You see, 486 and a half years had already been accomplished after Jesus preached, for 3.5 years. That was it right there. Once he died, he finished preaching, that was it. So that put a pause to it at his death. That put a pause to the count of 490 years. So when the Lord gets back, then that's when he'll, we'll finish off this count, this other 3.5 year count to make it 490 years that Babylon is ruling. All right, so now let's go over to Jeremiah chapter 27. Like I said, that's something, we can talk about later on, because that's a totally different class, but just not to leave it out there. So Jeremiah chapter 27, it says in verse 1, in the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, came this word unto Jeremiah from the Lord. Thus saith the Lord to me, make thee bonds and yokes, and put them upon thy neck, and send them to the king of Edom, and to the king of Moab, and to the king of the Ammonites, and to the king of Tyrus, and to the king of Zidon, by the hand of the messengers which come to Jerusalem, unto Zedekiah, king of Judah. All right, so what's getting ready to happen now? What's taking place now is that there's getting ready to be a message sent out to all these kings that y'all are getting ready to serve this king that's coming from Babylon, and if you don't serve him, the Lord gonna have him take y'all out. All right. So in verse 4 it says, and command them to say unto their masters, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, thus shall you say unto your masters, I have made the earth, the man and the beast that are upon the ground, by my great power and by my outstretched arm, and have given it unto whom it seemed meet unto me. But this is what the Lord is saying now to Jeremiah. He said, I made the earth, the man and the beast that are upon the ground, by my great power and by my outstretched arm, and have given it unto whom it seemed meet unto me. So the Lord is the one that set these kings up. That's one thing we have to understand. The Lord is the one that's given this kingdom to the Gentiles. Then he says, and now have I given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant. And the beast of the field have I given him also to serve him. So not only is the Lord putting Nebuchadnezzar, the Gentile dynasty, into power to rule the world, he ruling everything. The dogs belong to this man. The cats, the bulls, the cows, the whatever, kangaroos, it doesn't matter. Giraffes, horses, fish. Everything belongs to this man. All right. Then it says in verse 7, he said, and all nations shall serve him and his son. So it's not going to just stop with him. It's going to be passed down to his son. Then it said, and his son's son. So it's going to go on for a long time as far as this rulership being passed down. But this is the beginning of it right now. If you pay attention to what it says in verse 6, it says, and now I have given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. But Babylon first originated during the time of Nimrod. That's when Babylon first came into power. So we see now that, Babylon is still around during this time. All the way down the line, Babylon is still in power. Why are we still mentioning Babylon? Why are we still, addressing or even talking about Babylon if it ended with Nimrod? And it didn't end with Nimrod. All right. So now let's go over to let's see here. All right, so we're in verse 8, Jeremiah 27:8. It says, it shall come to pass that the nation and kingdom which will not serve the same Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and that will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, that nation will I punish, saith the Lord, with the sword, and with the famine, and with the pestilence, until I have consumed them by his hand. So at this point, this is where Nebuchadnezzar is coming up and getting ready to rule the world. You understand? And like I said, this would be the Gentile dynasty, or this what we know as white people. This is when their rulership first came into power. But if you look at what it says in verse 8, it says it's going to come to pass that the nation and kingdom which will not serve the same Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and that will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, that nation will I punish, saith the Lord, with the sword. So at this point, like I said, Babylon is still around. But it started during the time of Ham's son with Nimrod. All right. So nowhere are we going to see that Babylon is going to jump over to America and America going to become Babylon. No, we're going to actually see. Let's go over to Daniel chapter 1. Matter of fact, don't forget now, when we was in Genesis, when Ham actually came up, Nimrod came up, it tell you that Nimrod's kingdom, or Nimrod, he started off in Babel, Erech, Calneh, and it said in the land of Shinar. So I told you to remember Shinar, because Shinar is going to be around. It's going to be very important for you to understand that this still plays a picture. I mean, it plays a big part in the picture when Nebuchadnezzar come up. So Daniel chapter 1. Daniel chapter 1. All right, now let's see here. It says, in the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. Now we read about that in Jeremiah 25, read about that in Jeremiah 27. Now what Jeremiah was prophesying is actually about to happen. So it says, in the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. So now he's on his way. He done came down to take it now. And it says, and the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of God. So when Nebuchadnezzar came down, he came and took some of them vessels out. And if you pay attention to Joel chapter 3, they still got some of those vessels, because the Lord is mad about that. And even if they don't, they still took them. But you just think about what happened when Nebuchadnezzar's son or his grandson was out there, drinking out of the vessels that night, drinking out of them holy vessels, and the Lord had a problem with that. And that's where the figure comes from, the writings on the wall, the handwriting on the wall. Well, that's where it originated from, because, hey, he saw them, the angel wrote something on the wall and let him know that this, your kingdom is over with. You've been found wanting in the balance, and hey, it don't level out. It's over with for you. But, just going to show you that they had some of the vessels when they came and took us. in the captivity back then. So it said the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. So notice where Babylon is at. It's in Shinar. This is where it originated from. And here it is, thousands of years down the line, Nebuchadnezzar come up. And guess what guess where he's located at? Guess where Babylon is located? It's still in Shinar. All right. This is where he started off at. So it said, the Lord gave Jehoiakim, read that again. The Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring, a matter of fact, yeah, that's it on that. I just want to show you that Shinar was still in play. And if you go back to Genesis chapter 10, I think 1 through 10, around verse 10, you're going to see that Shinar is where Nimrod set up, he took Babel, Cana, and all them different places. You'll see that it was in the land of Shinar. All right, that's why that's very important. Now, Daniel chapter 7, let's go look at this. Daniel chapter 7. And a lot of people look at the book of Daniel. They say it's all symbolism. But Daniel, what the Lord does is, like you think about Jesus when he came in the flesh, he was speaking in parables. And when he was speaking in those parables, they actually had meaning to it. Well, it's almost like the same thing. It's almost like the same thing now the Lord, because this was the Lord talking back then in the book of Daniel. So he talking and it's like he's talking in parables also, but they do have meaning behind it. All right, so let's look at this in Daniel chapter 7. We're gonna pick this up at verse 1, because it's gonna break it all down. Like, you just gotta be patient with the Bible. You know what I'm saying? And don't let somebody tell you that, it's a fairy tale, but because the Bible is real, whether you believe it or not, it's absolutely real. So Daniel chapter 7 and verse 1, it says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matter. So at this point now, Daniel is in captivity. All right. And Belshazzar, king of Babylon, is in rulership now. This is Nebuchadnezzar's, I think it's either his son or his grandson. But Daniel's in captivity. So he done had a dream. All right. So it says in verse 2, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings there were plucked up, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and the man's heart was given to it. So the first part of what Daniel's seeing here, this is the beginning of the Gentile dynasty. Like I say, these are the Europeans, or we just call them, we know them as white people. But this is the beginning of their dynasty. And this is what we have to understand. One thing we have to understand, I hear a lot of people talking about, we got to come together and, we got to stop, black people mainly. They say we need to come together and spend our money in our own neighborhoods. And, we'll hurt the ruling powers and stuff like that if we just spend black dollars. And one thing that just kind of made me think about something that just, rung a bell, that how is it that you can have any effect on our economy? How you gonna be able to gather and spend black dollars with a white man's face on the money? That don't make sense. But even Jesus told you when he asked them, when they tried to catch Jesus up and they was asking him about paying Caesar. They tried to catch Jesus up, but the Lord told him, he said, whose face or whose face is on the money? Whose inscription is on the money? Whose face is there? And they told him Caesar. He said, well, render unto Caesar what's Caesar, and then render unto God what's God. You understand? But that's the ruler right there. You look at the face of the money. Hey, that's the one that's ruling it. So instead of us trying to spend black dollars and stuff like that, the best thing we need to do is Turn back to the commandments, keep God's commandments, and do what He say. And when the Lord get back, He'll take care of all this stuff. He understand. He see what's been happening. He see the wickedness that's going on in the world, just like He saw with our forefathers in Egypt. He'll take care of all that stuff when He get back. But I hear so many people trying to, they just trying to make a big fuss over stuff like we gonna change it. Listen, we've been marching, we've been sitting in, ain't nothing happened. We've been up and down in church every Sunday, ain't nothing happened. How is it that we fill up all these churches, but yet and still we in more funeral homes than anything? We killing each other more than anybody. So just going to show you, our problem ain't the white man. Our problem is us not doing what God told us to do. That's our problem right there. See, the Lord done put this man in power, and all we got to do, hey, we just got to submit to what the Lord set up. When He get back, he'll take care of everything. But it said the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings there were plucked up, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. So when you look at Daniel here, he's giving you an example. What he's doing is he's describing to you these different parts of this Gentile dynasty that's coming up. The first one, he described it as a lion. This was the beginning of the Gentile dynasty. It said it had eagle's wing, and I beheld till the wings there were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And all this is referring to is when Nebuchadnezzar, he came out one day, looked at the kingdom, and he took credit for all the stuff that was going on. He took credit for the success of the kingdom. That made the Lord mad. So what the Lord did, He sent him off into the wilderness for 7 years like a beast. Hair grew on him like crazy. Dew was on his back and everything. Nails grew. He was like a wild animal. And then after 7 years, the Lord brought him back to his senses. And then he understood who God was. That's why He said, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Because once the Lord had took him through that, then he understood, hey, I ain't do nothing. God is the one that gave me this. So in verse 5, it says, and after this lion, which is what we're talking about in verse 5, it said, and behold, another beast, a second like to a bear. And it raised up itself on one side and had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said, thus until it arise, devour much flesh. So now after this lion came up, you had another kingdom come up. And this kingdom that came up after them would be the Medo-Persian Empire. Today we know it as Russia and Iran. All you have to do is go look in history and you'll see that this stuff already happened. But the Bible was giving you this before history even documented. You understand? That's why I tell you the Bible is real, regardless of what man say. The Bible will tell you how the world gonna end before you even come on the scene. The Lord already got this stuff letting us know what's gonna happen. He already got the plan laid out. It's just that it's in the Bible for you to understand. This is how we communicate. We communicate through words. So it only makes sense for God to have stuff put down in words for us. So this other beast came up, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side and had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said, thus until it arise, devour much flesh. So you look at, matter of fact, if you look at the mascot for Russia, they still got the bear. All right, so they came up and ruled. That's the Medo-Persian Empire. Russia ruled first. Iran came up after. All right, but they still roll hand in hand. That's why I like to say, when you look at Russia and Iran, you're not gonna if you mess with Iran, you're gonna mess with Russia. You understand? If you mess with Russia, you're gonna mess with China. Yeah, it just ain't gonna happen. People like to say America go take out Iran and stuff like that. They can do sanctions all day. I bet they won't drop a bomb on them right now. I bet they won't do it because you're gonna wake Russia up because they roll hand in hand. That's why it's saying here in verse 5, behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it, and they said, thus until it arise, devour much flesh. Another place to just tell you that the higher came up last in Daniel chapter 8. It lets you know how they was actually the same, how one was ruling earlier, then the next one that came up, it came up higher. You see what I'm saying? Talking about his kingdom, that kingdom, or that particular part of that kingdom was a little bit greater than the first part, but they were still one and the same. So in verse 6 it says, and after this, talking about this kingdom we just read about, this animal we just read, after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So now at this point, this leopard that we're looking at, this would actually be your Greek Empire. All right. This is when Greece came up. and by way of Alexander the Great. And most of us have been taught about him in school. Um, you know, so if you haven't, you might have heard about him in passing and conversation or something like that. But you know, this is not anything that most of us shouldn't be familiar with. All of us should be familiar with Alexander the Great. But the Bible's telling you about him. It says, and after this I beheld, I'm sorry, yeah. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. All right, and we're gonna get down to the interpretation of it. All right, but mainly what we talking about, we just talking about this, this when Alexander the Great came up, he came up pretty fast, and he was able to conquer pretty fast. He took down Russia and Iran. He took down the Medo-Persian Empire, but he didn't live that long. So by him dying off, you had his 4 generals that came up in his place, because he didn't have a son like to pass it on to. So his generals, they came up and they just split the kingdom 4 ways. That's why you got a place called Alexandria, Egypt, because they took a part of that also. All right. So in verse 7 it says, and after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So now we get down to this last one here. If you pay attention to this last beast right here, it don't give you it doesn't describe this last beast like an animal. Like you look at all the beasts that came before. The first one, it was like a lion. The second one, it was like it was described as a bear. Then the third one, it was described as a leopard. But this fourth one here, he's not gonna be. The Bible doesn't liken this one to an animal, because this one right here, it's gonna rule you a totally different way. Now, just keep in mind, this fourth and dreadful beast, this is actually talking about the Roman Empire. But just keep in mind, it's not going. Their mindset, Rome's mindset, is not to get you physically right now. Rome's mindset right now is to get you spiritually. That's why he's gonna be a great and dreadful and terrible beast. See, it's bad when somebody kill you and take your life. But even Jesus warned you about that, right? He said, don't worry about the one that can kill a body, but worry about the one that can kill a body and so where? In hell. That's the one you need to be focused on. That's who you need to be worried about. And this is why this last part of this dynasty is considered a great and dreadful and terrible beast. Because not only are they going to eventually start making you bow down and worship them, or worship this beast, but if you do that, guess what? If you bow down and worship him, you take his mark, guess where you're going? You're going to the lake of fire. And there is no coming back from the lake of fire. You understand? So you got to be mindful of that. So now let's go look at something else. Let's skip down to verse 15, because then you want to know the interpretation on this. So Daniel chapter 7, we're going to skip down to verse 15 to read this. It says, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit, in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. And I called this, for those who may not know, it's called, Is America Babylon? And I just want to deal with this because you have so many people saying that America is Babylon, and that's not the case. Like I said earlier, America is a small piece to the puzzle, but in the big scheme of things, Rome is who you need to be paying attention to. All right, so it says, verse 15, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the thing. So now Daniel's getting ready to get interpretation on on these different animals that he saw. That's why it's very important for you not to just, get into the beginning of it, like verses 1 through 8, and stop. And that's what most people do when they read the Bible. They try to figure it out immediately. But there's a formula on how you're supposed to read the Bible. All right. And one of the things is keep reading. You know what I'm saying? Another thing is you gotta be able to go to the law and to the testimony. You're gonna have to grab some out of the Old Testament, you're gonna have to grab some out of the New Testament. And as a matter of fact, that's what we're going after we read this. We go into the New Testament because these same beasts that Daniel is seeing is gonna come back into the picture in the book of Revelation. All right, so verse 15 says, I Daniel was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation there of the things. He's talking to an angel. This is actually Gabriel. It says, these great beasts, which are four, these great beasts that we read about, right? The lion, the bear, and the leopard, and the fourth beast was the great and dreadful, terrible beast, right? He's telling them what it is. He says, these great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth, okay? But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. All right, so that's what these are. These are four kings that's going to rise out of the earth. Like I told you, the first king, the first one that was a lion, that was Nebuchadnezzar, beginning of the Gentile dynasty, right? And then you had the next one that came up. The next one that came up was Medo-Persian Empire, which is Russian Iran. The ones that ruled this particular kingdom would be Darius and the Medes, Cyrus and the Persians. Go look it up in history. After they got taken down, the next part of the kingdom that came up was Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, he died off. Once he died, because he died at an early age, but his kingdom that came up was the Greek Empire. Once he died, the Greek Empire was still in power. It's just that, like I said, he didn't have nobody to pass off the inheritance to. Nobody, no sons that could take the kingdom and continue it on for him. So his generals that he had, they actually took the kingdom themselves and divided it up. All right. Then once they died off, or once they got taken down, then the Roman Empire came up. And this is what it's saying in verse 17. These great beasts, which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. But they're still a part of the same family. This is why even today you look around and you have the Europeans still ruling the world, because God put them in power. And he's not going to take them out until he get back. And he's on his way back. That's why you starting to see things starting to move fast toward the end of the world, because the Lord getting ready to return. And then you're going to start seeing these nations trying to hold on to the kingdom, but the Lord going to come and tear all this stuff up, because it's a lot of wickedness going on. But they going to rule until he returns. All right, so it says in verse 18, but the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom, not beg for the kingdom, not ask for it. They're going to take the kingdom, and they're going to possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then he says, Daniel says in verse 19, because even though we know these are kings and stuff like that, he is concerned about this last beast. This last beast was a dreadful and terrible beast. So he said, I want to know about this beast. He says, then I will know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, break in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had, wait a minute, let's go back and see something. Let's go back to, we need to read verse 8. Hold on. We need to read verse 8 first, because I don't think I read verse 8. No, we need to read verse 7 and verse 8. I think I jumped over it. All right, let's read verse 7 and 8, then go back down there. Verse 7, it says, after this I saw in the night visions, behold, a fourth beast, and dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So now, sometimes in the Bible, when you see horns, they just represent kings, okay? So in this particular case right here, it says this particular beast here, right? He was dreadful and terrible, strong exceedingly. He had great iron teeth, it devoured and break in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, right? And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. And we're going to look at the 10. We'll see what the 10 horns are. But what I want you to pay attention to is that he was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And the reason why he's diverse, because listen, he's not trying to, this beast, when he come up, he ain't worrying about getting you, like I said earlier, physically. He worrying about getting you in your mind. That's why you got Sunday worship. The Lord told you what? To remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. This man say, no, in 325 AD, by way of Constantine, he changed the Sabbath day to Sunday. The Bible never changed it. The Lord told you in Leviticus chapter 11, he gave you a particular diet that you can eat and that you can't eat. And some people gonna hit the lake of fire for eating pork, for eating shrimp and catfish. And this man told you coming out of Roman Catholic Church that you can eat anything, just pray over. Then flip Acts chapter 10 completely upside down. Acts chapter 10 is where the Lord is now bringing in other nationalities to the word of God. The Roman Catholic Church gives you the doctrine that Acts chapter 10 is telling you can eat any type of meat. Don't call the man common or unclean. That's what Acts chapter 10 was talking about. He wasn't talking about literal food. So this particular part of the dynasty is not worrying about taking you down physically right now. What he's worrying about, he's going to get you in your mind. He's going to give you things in your mind to make you go against God. That's why he's a great and dreadful and terrible beast, because a lot of people going to hit the lake of fire for following this guy. Well, you say, well, I don't follow him. I don't follow the Pope. I'm not a Catholic. Are you going to have a Christmas tree in your house on December 25th? All you got to do is split the word up. It's Christ Mass. Who deals with Mass? Who deals with the Mass of Christ? The Roman Catholic Church. Who gave you Sunday? Constantine did in 325 AD. He gave you Sunday. If you think about it, you split the word up, it's called Sunday. It's the day of the sun god. Has nothing to do with Jesus. December 25th has absolutely nothing to do with Jesus. Jesus told you to remember his death, which is the Passover, which you can read in Exodus chapter 12. You can read in Leviticus chapter 23. But this man has given you something completely different. This is why he's a great and dreadful and terrible beast, because a lot of people are going to hit the lake of fire because of this guy. But guess what? It's still Babylon. And it's a mystery because most people don't know they still exist. Everybody think that Rome has failed. But just think about something. Around January, when the Super Bowl get here, they're going to have the Super Bowl numbers up in Roman numerals, ain't they? How's it that we America, we done split away from Rome, but yet still, listen, when I was a kid, they was teaching me Roman numerals in elementary school. It didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand that mess. I mean, I can say some of it. I can probably count some of it. But the point is, they was giving us Roman numerals over here in America. So you got to pay attention. They claws are in everything. So he said in verse 8, I considered the horns, because remember now it said this beast had 10 horns. He said, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. Because see, these horns that were in this last beast right here, it's just a representation of Rome rising and falling 10 times. You're going to have these different kings that's going to come up that's going to try to revive and rebuild Rome. It's going to happen a total of 10 times. It doesn't happen 9 times. We got one more time that they're going to try to rebuild Rome. And if you ain't been paying attention, they already talking about putting this army together because they're going to try to bring it back. But in addition to that, pay attention to what it says. It says, there came up among them another little horn. Why is the Bible, focusing or saying something about this another little horn? Because this other little horn, he got something else on the agenda. He ain't worrying about busting you aside your head. He worrying about getting you in your mind. But he's still gonna be a king. The Bible called him a king in Daniel chapter 11. But he says, what? I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. So when this little horn come up, he gonna take down 3 of those 10 horns, which gonna leave 7. He gonna take them down immediately, and that's gonna leave 7. All right, that's what he gonna do. And that's what he did. He took down, if you look at it, it's the Heralites, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals. These are 3 kings of the Roman Empire that he took down when he came into power. All right, that's all this is referring to. Real simple. It's hard, but it's simple. All right. So now let's skip back down to verse 23. Verse 23. Because remember now, the angel was giving him the interpretation of these 4 beasts that he saw. So now we're down to this last one, because even though we know these are 4 kings that are coming up, Daniel was concerned about this last one, this great and dreadful, great and dreadful and terrible beast. Daniel want to know about him. So in verse 23 it says, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth. Now pay attention to this last beast now. He said the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth. Because remember now, hey, we talking about these are kingdoms or kings that's going to come out of this Gentile dynasty. They're going to rule the world until Jesus get back. When we get down to this last one, pay attention to what he say. He say, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces, right? That's what's going to happen with this last one. I told you he's not going to be like all the other ones now. He going to come and, he got another agenda. See, it's bad if somebody can get you in your mind to go against what God is telling you to do. That's a problem. That's a problem. But it says, in the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. That's talking about the Roman Empire. They're going to rise and fall 10 times. Then it says, and another shall rise after them. That's that little horn that we read about earlier. You're going to have these 10 kings that's going to militarily, they're going to try to make, Rome rise and fall. Rise. It's going to fall, but they're going to keep trying to make it rise up 10 times. But you're going to have another little guy on the other side. He going to be in the background doing his thing spiritually. That's why it says, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. Because he going to be, he's like I say, he ain't going to be the same way. He going to be diverse from the first. He going to take down 3 kings when he come, but he going to be diverse. He's not going to rule like a normal man would. Just think about armies. Think about military. When they come in, they come to take down the world, don't they? They ain't worrying about you. They don't care about your doctrine. They don't care about your belief system. All's fair and loving. Where they coming to kill. This guy, he got a totally different agenda. He trying to take you to the lake of fire. That's why I say he going to be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. All right? So now let's go over to Revelation chapter 17. Revelation chapter 13, I'm sorry. Revelation chapter 13. Let's see what John gonna see in the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible. Let's see what he is seeing, this vision that the Lord has given him. See what the Lord has given him. In 1 second. I'm in Atlanta, Kevin. If you asking, I'm in Atlanta, man. I don't know. You be a guest speaker where? Israel Church of Jesus Atlanta. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'd definitely love to have you, man. Definitely love to have you, bro. But let's see here. Let's go back over to Revelation chapter 13, because it's very important. Because a lot of stuff that Daniel saw, Daniel saw some things that was going to unfold. Thousands of years down the line in our time. And even John saw some things. He's gonna see almost the same exact thing, because when it comes to the book of Revelation, when it comes to the end of the world, which is the last book of the Bible, guess what? This beast gonna still be around. So in Revelation 13:1, it says, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Now let me just let you know what these 7 horns are first, for these 7 heads. It said having 7 heads and 10 horns. All right. So I know that can be a little confusing. If you got pen and paper, just write this down. The 7 heads would be the beginning of the Gentile dynasty, starting with Nebuchadnezzar. That's number 1. All right. The second king, and that was the lion that we saw in Daniel. The second king that came up was the bear, which was the Medo-Persian Empire. All right, that's number 2. The third kingdom, the third part of the kingdom that came up would be the Greek Empire. And like I said, you had Alexander the Great that came up, right? So we got 2 right now. Alexander the Great came up, but he died at an early age. So you had his 4 generals come up in his stead. So you got his 4 generals, which makes it now 6, right? These are 6 heads right now. And then we got this last one, which is the Roman Empire that's going to come up. That's your 7 heads right there. So this is what John is seeing in Revelation. He said, I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads. So we got these 7 heads now, right? Because this beast now, this beast that we see, this beast that we are seeing way in Revelation, it still has, I guess, the other parts of the kingdom intertwined into it. Even though Nebuchadnezzar dead. Even though the Medo-Persian Empire, they still around, but guess what? They ain't ruling none right now as far as the world is concerned. Alexander the Great, he died. His generals died, but guess what? Greece is still around. So when you get down to this last part of the kingdom, they still have some of the characteristics of the previous ones that ruled before them. Then it says, and upon his horn, then it says, well, I saw a beast rise out of the sea having 7 heads and 10 horns, right? And upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. So when you look at 10 horns, right? Remember I told you horns sometimes represent kings in the Bible. So we got these 7 heads represent this Gentile dynasty. Out of them, it got 10 horns, right? Then upon these 10 horns, you got 10 crowns. All right. So really what this is referring to, we're going to go to Revelation 17 to look at that. But just to kind of, so you don't have to wonder what it's talking about. These 10 horns that it's referring to is that when we get down to our time, which we're in right now, you're going to have 10 nations, all right, that's going to come together. And they're going to agree to give their power to the man that's coming out of the papacy. They're going to agree to give their power to him. But individually, these are kings of their own particular lands. That's why it said 10 horns, and upon his horn 10 crowns. You see? And upon his head the name of blasphemy. Then it says, in the beast which I saw, pay attention now, because remember now, we saw these in Daniel. He said, the beast which I saw, John seeing this way in Revelation now, years after Daniel saw it. God giving John the vision, though. He said, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing some of the Gentile dynasty, right? Because it still has the Gentile dynasty intertwined into it. So you see some of Greece, which is that leopard. You see some of Russia and Iran, which is that bear. You see the beginning of the Gentile dynasty, which is that lion, Nebuchadnezzar. The beginning of Babylon, you see that. Then it says what? And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. You know who the dragon is that gave him his power? That's Satan. Satan is the one that gave him his power. That's the one who's behind Rome, sisters and brothers. That's why you don't want to follow them. Don't be deceived. They may look good, may sound good and talk good, but listen, Satan is very crafty. He's the one that's behind this. That's why he said the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Then it says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Now, what is it talking about here? It said, and I saw one of his heads. Why? Because one of his heads, or one of these, this part of the dynasty, which is Rome, it looks like it's dead right now. In other words, people don't realize that Rome is still around functioning. Why do you think everywhere this Pope goes, they bow down to the Pope? Why do you think they carry him around like he's a king? Daniel chapter 11 tells you that he's a king. But John says, well, I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. People think that Rome fell in 467, I think 467, 476 AD, one of those, think that they fell and they ain't been back. No, they just been ruling you spiritually. But pay attention, though. It said his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So what do it mean by his deadly wound healed? Because they're coming back. We think that it was destroyed. We think that it fell off, but it's coming back. And guess what's going to happen when he come back? All the world going to wonder after the beast. All right. Then he said what? And they worshiped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? Because he's going to have these armies. He's going to be taking down the world. But God got something for him. And he said, it was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months, right? So that means he's going to rule the world for 3.5 years at the set time. At the set time, when it's all said and done, guess what? 3.5 years, that's how long the Great Tribulation going to take place. And that's how long he's going to be whooping down the saints. That's what 42 months is. 1,260 days, 3.5 years. Hold on 1 second, y'all. I think my dog got to use the bathroom. Hold on, y'all. Yeah, she hitting me. Well, you call Nate. You hungry? All right, hold on. All right, so let's see here. All right, so verse 6, it says, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God to blaspheme his name in his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear to hear, let him hear. So just pay attention though. Like everybody want to be saints, everybody want to be saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost. Well, listen, you call yourself a saint, serving God, keeping his commandments. Guess what? You're gonna have to deal with this. You're gonna have to. I'm gonna read verse 7 again. It said, it was given unto him to make war with the saints. Why ain't nobody telling these people in church this on Sunday? That there's gonna be somebody that's coming to make war with the saints. Nobody's being warned about that because it's all about prosperity, getting rich. And the world is getting ready to come down fast. And this man that's coming out of Rome is getting ready to take down the world. May not be this particular guy, but all the nations are starting to line up. That's what we ain't paying attention to. If you just pay attention to how these nations are saying things like Europe is now saying we gonna have to get our own army now. Trump done made people mad. And these people are actually saying we don't need America to fight for us no more. We need our own army. But guess what? God told you they was going to form their own army. And we sit up here worrying about money, worrying about getting rich and all that type of stuff. And God is getting ready to tear this place to pieces. It said it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given over all kindreds and tongues and nations, right? And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Because the plan was already there from the beginning. A lot of people don't know that. That's what that light is talking about in Genesis chapter 1, around verse 2. Lord already had a plan of salvation put together in case Adam dropped the ball. That's why I say what? Whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from when? Come in. From the foundation of the world. It was already set up. All right, so now let's go over to Revelation chapter, oh man, 17. I can't read all this. That's one thing it's hard to do, is get in this prophecy and like get away from reading all of it, but I ain't got no choice. Let me see, do I have to read all this? I don't got to read all this. Let's skip down to Revelation 17, verse 10. Revelation 17, verse 10. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, Revelation 17. Goodness gracious, do I gotta read all that? Okay, verse 8. All right, so he says, the beast that thou saw was, in other words, was in existence, right? And is not. So Rome was in power. At the time right now, it is not, right? Spiritually, you think about it. When you look at Rome right now, everybody think America is ruling the world. America is in power, right? America is at the forefront right now because, Rome is allowing it to be at the forefront. Okay, that's what's going on right now. But what we talking about in the Bible, we're not talking about America. We still talking about Babylon. All right, the Babylon that originated from, when Nebuchadnezzar came up. But it say the beast that thou saw was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, talking about into destruction. So in other words, this beast talking about Rome, that's the last part of this empire, the Gentile dynasty. It was in existence. Right now, it's not, as far as what people know and understand. Well, guess what's going to happen? It's going to ascend out of the bottomless pit. In other words, right now we don't know about it. You're going to know about it real soon. It's going to come up out of nowhere. It's going to come out of obscurity. Everybody going to know who this about it real soon. That's why that's what it's talking about. It's going to ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. What we talking about perdition? Going to go into destruction for 3.5 years. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose name were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and pay attention, and yet is. Why is it saying yet is? Because it's going to come back. It's still here. People don't understand that. We ain't got nothing to do with America. America has nothing to do with this conversation. Don't get me wrong now. America is, a lot of the slaves over here, and God got to get us from over here, and we are preaching and stuff like that coming out of America. But as far as this particular prophecies that Daniel saw and John saw, ain't got nothing to do with America. All right, so it said verse 9, and here's the mind which have wisdom. The seven heads are seven mountains on which the women sit. So it's so crazy because all you got to go do is look at the seven hills of Rome. And you'll be able to see that actually Rome actually sits on seven hills or seven mountains. And they even got names for all the mountains that it sit on. But the Bible is giving you a specific location as to where Rome or this beast is located at. It said, and here's the mind which have wisdom. The seven heads are seven mountains on which the women sit. Then he says in verse 10, and there are seven kings, five are fallen, and one is, and the other is not yet come. So what John is seeing, he's kind of breaking down what Daniel had saw. Remember that other little horn came up, and it immediately took down three horns that was a part of the 10 horns. Okay, that little horn that was on the side, like I said earlier, doing his thing, he came in and snatched them three down, the Huralites, Ostrogoths, and the Bandel. He took them down and got them out the way. When he took those three down, guess what? You had seven left. Now, John is saying there are seven kings, five are fallen, because when John was here, five of them had already been fallen. One of them was still yet in power, right? At this time right now that we're alive, that one that was in power when John was there, it ain't in power no more, right? So that's six. Then we got another one that's on the way. That makes your seven right there. That's why it says five are fallen, one is, and the other is not yet come. But they in talks right now. Then it says, and when he come, he must continue a short space. And what I mean by they're in talks right now, because not only are they talking about putting the army together, but they also talking about putting a man in power to lead that army. And he would be that 7-1, the one that actually takes hold and leads this army. All right, then it says, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and go into perdition. Because once this beast come back, hey, this is it right here. That's why I tell you, Rome may fall, but he will be the 8th part of this fraction here. It said, and the beast that was, talking about Rome, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and go into perdition. Even though he's the 8th one, guess what? He's still coming out of those 7 heads. All right. Then it says what? It says, in the 10 horns which thou sawest, and when I mean he coming out of those 7 heads, he's still gonna come from coming out of Nebuchadnezzar. He's still coming out of the Medo-Persian Empire, which is Darius and the Mede, Cyrus and Persian. He's still coming out of the 4 Greek generals that came up after Alexander the Great. And he's still going to come up out of the Roman Empire. So you got your 7 right there. And then the last time this guy come back, guess what? That's going to be number 8. That's why it says here, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7, or from the 7, and he going into perdition. Then it says, in the 10 horns which thou saw, because we saw 10 horns, right? He said, are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So you're going to have these 10 nations that's going to come together. Just look it up. Go look in your history. I mean, not history. Look in current events right now, and you'll see the European Union is talking about putting an army together. They got like 26, 27 people right now that are agreeing to it. And I even read an article about a year ago, an article where it said that these armies, what they're going to do is, they're going to look for votes on particular policies and stuff like that. And if everybody don't agree to it, they're going to buck the system and do it anyway. You know what that's going to do? That's going to narrow it down to 10. That's going to eventually narrow it down to 10, because they ain't going to be listening to nobody say, well, okay, we're going to do it anyway. But when it's all said and done, guess what? It's just going to be 10 kings left. It said, the 10 horns which thou saw are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. In other words, that they're going this is who the Pope is going to use to fight this battle, or fight his take down the world these 3.5 years. That's what we talking about when we say 1 hour with a beast. We're not talking about a literal 60 minutes. We just talking about a particular time frame. In this case, we talking about 3.5 years, because that's how long the Great Tribulation gonna be. So he said, the 10 horns which I saw are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but they talking about it. They getting everything together, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. 13 says, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. So you got these 10 kings right now who operate from separate locations. They're going to come together on one accord, and they're going to allow the Pope, or the Pope is going to be the spiritual man, that's going to be trying to make you worship and stuff like that. Then you're going to have the 10 armies. Then you're going to have this leader that's ruling the 10 armies. That leader would be considered the beast in this case, and the false prophet would be considered the Pope. So he said, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. So keep in mind, listen, this particular army going to be around when Jesus get back. This particular kingdom is going to be around when Jesus get back. Why you think they trying to get out? Why? Listen, you have so many poor people in this world. We ain't got no money to feed the poor, but we got money for what? Didn't Tupac say that? That's absolutely true. Because don't nobody want to give up their power. God going to come and take it. Pay attention to what man is going to do in verse 14. He said, these shall make war with the Lamb. They're going to fight against Jesus. Isn't that something? He said, well, the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he said unto me, the waters which I saw where the horse sit are people's nation. All right, so now let's go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 1. We almost done. Got one more spot off after this. I didn't mean to make it so long. My sound got jacked up. I had to stop it and come back in. And so that's why I'm a little behind. But 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, we're gonna pick this up at verse 1. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. We're gonna pick this up at verse 1. All right, so it says, now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by our gathering together unto him, that you be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter asked from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand. So what Paul is saying, don't let nobody deceive you regarding the Lord's return, because it's some things that has to happen first before he get back. So in verse 3, he say, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day should not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. So in order, first and foremost, the first thing that got to happen is, don't let no man deceive you, okay? Because see, like I told you, it ain't so much about you getting killed physically. You're going to listen. A lot of people going to die for the word of God anyway. You know what I'm saying? But the problem is being deceived. That's the problem right there. You know what I'm saying? This is what even Jesus told you in Matthew chapter 24. He said, many going to be deceived. Many going to come in my name saying I'm Christ, and shall deceive many. And that's what's going on today. You got to open up this Bible, and you got to check everything. You got to check your preacher, make sure what he is saying is lining up with the Bible. You got to check me. And that's why we're going through the Bible to show you what the book is saying. Because listen, you're going to have to stand up for yourself on judgment day. Ain't nobody going to stand for you. So you got to be making sure that you lining everything up with the Bible. So a preacher saying something, going to the Bible, see if it's lining up with the book. If it ain't lining up, then hey, you're going to have to sit down and ask some questions. You're going to tell them, listen, we're going to have to sit down and talk, man, because what you're saying ain't matching up with the book. And then you probably going to get kicked out, because that's usually what happens when you challenge somebody that's lying. But in verse 3, he said, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day should not come except there come a falling away first. And the falling away we're talking about from the word. See, when Israel was in the land, when the Hebrews was in the land, they knew who they were. You understand? They had their feast days, and they kept their holy days, they kept the Sabbath day and stuff like that. When our forefathers got taken out of Israel and got sent off into captivity, years down the line, that's when we start losing our identity. Because when you take a person out of their land, guess what? You can take their nationality from them. You can beat them down and then raise them up as African Americans. Why? Because they ain't got no history, they ain't got no heritage to tie back to. But once we got taken out of the land, guess what? We lost our identity. We lost keeping the feast days. We lost keeping the commandments. And Israel is the nation of people that the Lord set, that God set up to preach the gospel to the world. So if we ain't preaching the gospel to the world, guess what? The whole world gonna fall off. And this is what he's talking about. This is what Paul was telling you about before this even happened. He said, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come. What day? The Lord's return shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. We're talking about the Pope of Rome. Another name is called, he calling him here, the son of perdition, the man of sin. Another place called him the abomination of desolation. Daniel chapter 11 called him the abomination that make desolate. Jesus is warning you about this man throughout the whole Bible. Even Paul telling you, listen, it ain't going to come a fall. It ain't going to come. The end of the world ain't going to come. Don't let nobody deceive you, whether it's by word or spirit. Don't let no angel come telling you nothing different regarding the Lord's return, because some things has to happen. What got to happen? A falling away got to take place, and that man of sin got to be revealed. In verse 4, he say, what? Who oppose and exalt himself above all that is called God, or that is worship, so that he as God sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And that's exactly what he gonna do. You got these people over in Israel today. They call themselves Jews, and guess what? They're gonna go over to matter of fact, they trying to get it. Them people in Israel today, they call themselves Jews. Those aren't the Jews according to the Bible, but they trying to get a temple built over there because they don't believe in Jesus. They believe that when they get the temple built, then the Messiah is gonna come. But Jesus done already came. Jesus ain't coming to go sit over there with them. Jesus come back to kill first off. Then after he killed, then he gonna set his kingdom up on this earth. That's why he told you to pray thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. You ain't going off to heaven nowhere. He gonna bring his kingdom to this earth, and he gonna rule from Jerusalem. But these people over in Israel, they think that, they don't believe that Jesus came and died. So they gonna start sacrificing animals again, which is what they're trying to do now. That's why a few months ago they made a big deal about finding a red heifer, because they're gonna wait till around next year, around October. If it don't get no blemishes on this particular animal, they're gonna kill it and they're gonna start sacrificing animals. And what they trying to do now, they already got all the vessels that they need. They training these little young boys over there to start sacrificing animals and perform services inside the temple. But they not the real people of God. But they gonna build a temple, and what's gonna end up happening, this Pope gonna leave Rome, he gonna move over to Jerusalem, and he gonna take that temple. And when he stand up in that temple, he gonna tell him, I'm God. All y'all bow down to me. Not just in Jerusalem, all over the world. Well, matter of fact, it tell you a quarter part of the earth in Revelation. Then they gonna stir up Russia, and they gonna make them mad, and that's when Russia gonna come over to Jerusalem. They gonna start fighting. Then the Lord is coming. All right, but that's something later on. But it tell you in verse 4, he said, who oppose and exalt himself above all that is called God, or that is worship, so that he as God sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. That's an abomination. That's blasphemy. You're gonna sit up here and make the world think you God. He already doing it. He already called himself the Holy See. Pay attention now. Everywhere he go, they move him around in that little mobile. I call it it's a glass mobile. They put him in a glass mobile and they drive him around the city when he come through different cities, and you can't get it, you can't touch him. And then when they do allow you to touch him, you're gonna kiss the ring. You gotta bow down to him. So skip down to verse 7. It says, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Because in Paul's time, they was even around. Rome been around for a long time. The Romans are the ones who went on and who killed Jesus. Israel is the one who wanted him killed. But they've been around. And Paul was telling you about this, in his time. He was saying, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now will let until he be taken out of the way. So the Lord going to allow him to stay in power, do what he do until the Lord get back and destroy him. That's why I say in verse 8, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. And that's what's going to happen. When the Lord get back, the Lord going to take down this man. But guess where he's coming from? He's still coming out of Rome. It's not switching over to America at all. America is a very small piece of the puzzle, okay? The place that what you need to watch, you need to pay attention to Rome. Pay attention to Rome. Pay attention to man that's in the office of the papacy. Like I said, may not be this particular guy because he's a little older. But, you know, it's funny how they had a year ago, about a year or two ago, they had a series come out called The Young Pope. You know what I'm saying? They had a series called The Young Pope, like it's kind of, you know, preparing you. But it's all good. Just make sure you're paying attention because that's who you need to be watching. Not necessarily be so concerned about what's going on in America, even though America definitely going down the drain. I mean, fast. You know what I'm saying? But Rome is where you need to watch because, like I said, they trying to get you in your mind. Revelation chapter 18, the last place. Revelation chapter 18. We're going to pick this up at verse 1. This and what's going to happen when the Lord comes, he's going to take them down, and this is when Babylon is going to fall. This is when it's all going to be over with. Not anytime sooner. Like I said earlier, the Lord put the Gentiles in rulership until he returns. Then once the Lord get back, he going to take these nations down, and then he going to set his kingdom up. Then guess what? Israel, the Israelites, the Negro that's in slavery, is going back into power. We ruled at a time with David. That was our forefather. When Solomon, they ruled. That was our forefather. They ruled the world. And then they disobeyed God. The Lord sent us into captivity. But we ain't going to be in this position forever. Why you think we starting to wake up and turn back to God? Because like he told you in Ezekiel chapter 37, listen, I'm going to bring them dry bones in the valley going to come back, and I'm going to put my breath in them. And they're going to stand up. And that's exactly what's starting to happen. And the Lord is on his way. And then when he get back, listen, he bringing us out of captivity, and Israel going to rule the world. Not all Israel, because some Israelites going to hit the lake of fire. You know, so you better turn back to God while you have a chance. But Revelation chapter 18, verse 1, he said, and after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So this is during the time when the Lord get back and take down Babylon, take down the Gentile dynasty. You know, like I say, the white man's rulership, and that's how we understand. Ain't nothing against white people, black people, none of that. We just know right now we comprehend and understand that the white man is in power. So the white man's rulership is not going to end until Jesus get back. So we can stop with all the, you know, the black dollar stuff. You got to just sit still, be patient, and just wait for the Lord to get back. Believe me, he's paying attention to everything that's going on in this world. Just like he was paying attention to what was going on during the time when our forefathers was in Egypt. And you had black people put black people into captivity. They're not the same people, though. But, hey, you know, they had us in captivity, and the Lord was mad about that, and he came down and took the world down. That's the same thing he's going to do. He's going to come down and take the world down again, but this time he's going to get us out of captivity worldwide. So he said, he cried mildly, verse 2, with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard, and matter of fact, hey, most of all the nations have laid down with Babylon. And they got rich off her merchandise. You think about it. Everybody was buying what she was offering or selling what she was offering. But this is when the Lord get back, he's going to take them down. But let's pay attention to verse 4, though. 18:4. It says, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. So I just wanted to show you and point out that America is not Babylon. Babylon is actually still in existence. The Bible considered mystery Babylon, and it's a mystery because most people don't know about it. If it was America, it wouldn't be a mystery. Everybody would know. But it's a mystery, and it's gonna come out of, like I said, it's gonna come out of the bottomless pit. You know, so hopefully that helps somebody out. And I thank you for tuning in. And I like to say grace and peace in Jesus' name. Peace, Brother John. Glad you made it, man. I was wondering about you, man. Hey, Sister Mary. Thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all have a good night. Peace in Jesus' name.